Prior to my depression, I had depended on four faculties, as many of us, I think, do. I depended on my intellect, which I spent a lot of time honing and training. I had depended on my emotions, I had depended on my will, and I had depended on my ego. That's a pretty conventional list of things we rely on. But in depression, each and every one of those things is utterly useless. Depression isn't a problem you can think your way out of. No, you can think your way into it, but you can't think your way out of it. Emotions are dead and gone. And depression is not a feeling of sadness, it's the terrifying knowledge that you can't feel anything at all. The will, it barely exists. I remember in depression keeping a little journal at the advice of a therapist who said, just keep track of whatever minor gains you're able to make every day. So my journal entries, 2 or 3 of them a day, would be things like, I was able to get up at 11:15 this morning instead of 10:45. Now that's not the metric by which I normally measure my own achievement, but I learned something about, using a gentler metric on myself in that time, because my will was almost non-existent, and my ego, which I had depended on, as we've said, had been shattered. But what I discovered in depression was that way back in the thickets of my life, deep in the woods as it were, there was a little spark of primitive, original life, a drive to life that I could feel only very slightly every now and then, that I came to think of in my language as the soul, a faculty we don't talk much about. And the soul, if it's a word that doesn't work for someone, it doesn't matter. It's a mystery for which no one has the name. The Hasidic Jews call it the spark of the divine in every human being. Secular humanists call it identity and integrity. Buddhists call it big self or no self. Call it what you will, no one knows its name, but it's the being and human being. And I think I learned in depression to honor that part of myself and to hold these other faculties, which I still use and depend upon, intellect, emotions, will, ego, to hold them more modestly, to hold them less as the main tools with which I wanted to whack away at the world, and to hold the intention of being in the world in a more soulful way, a more authentic way, a way more truthful to my own, not only potentials, but my own limitations.